Hey, it's me, WWE Hall of Famer from the LOD, Road Warrior Animal. And who are you?
Yeah, I gotta do this when? Now? I'm watching a match. What is now? Now is, oh, now. Yeah, thanks. Hey, this is the Pharaoh from Monte and the Pharaoh. I just want to say thank you to our subscribers as we now have hit the 10,000 plateau. Thank you to all our subscribers out there. But I'm going to ask our subscribers to take the next step for us and become a full-fledged YouTube Monte and the Pharaoh member. Yes, that's right, folks. You can check it out. We've got 3 different levels. There's free shirts. There's free autographs. There's all sorts of perks for our members. There is nothing more we enjoy than giving you this program. And to do that, we need your support, and we appreciate your support. This is Jimmy Pharaoh, and don't forget to check out Monte and the Pharaoh every Thursday from Indie Music TV and on Cablevision here locally in New York. Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh. Later. Is that good enough for you? Can I finish this? Lesnar's killing him. I'm pissed. Yes.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh, produced out of Indie Music TV from Ronkonkoma, Long Island. It is another Thursday, and we welcome everybody aboard with this special show, a great interview coming up. First, I want to recognize our super producer, Mr. Matty Ice. Matty, good to see you again, my friend. We missed you.
As always, great to be here.
And to the right is the star of the show, Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you, bud?
Hello.
So if anyone doesn't know, Jimmy and our guest were talking for about 20 minutes about the Three Stooges, and I just was
there you go. Mr.
getting
Party
sick
Pooper comes to rain on the old parade.
my stomach.
Yeah, well, you know, good humor's hard to come by, and you clearly don't recognize it. What do you
So
know?
I was we were together today, and we were just rapping, and we were just talking about things, and it made me think.
Okay.
I'm gonna hit you with this. So it made me think about you.
What?
I started thinking
It's
about
been a long day,
Smashing Pumpkins lead singer and owner of the NWA.
Yeah, Billy Corgan. Yeah, what about
That's
Billy?
correct.
What about Billy?
So Billy,
Okay.
in my opinion,
All right.
is almost
Where
almost like you. So
Billy Corgan and I are alike?
kind of, and I'll explain.
I guess that's not bad, but it depends
So
on how you
Jimmy,
explain it. What?
Jimmy's a
What?
musician and he's a rocker, and
Yeah, okay.
you know, I keep preaching to Jimmy how maybe he should. C.J. Duncan, you have the entire Three Stooges collection on DVD, bro.
Yes!
Bro, we love you, but I don't
No.
know what the hell you're doing.
I know what you're doing, having a great time. Way to go
Anyway,
there, CJ.
so Jimmy,
Yeah. What?
Jimmy is a rocker, and I keep telling him about going to the beach. But I was looking across the table at Jimmy, and we're talking, and I'm like, he
saw how
reminds me
pale
of
I am?
Billy Corgan.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Corgan.
Wait a
Every
minute.
time I see him,
He's ghostly white.
exactly.
Are you telling me I'm Casper? What are you trying to
well,
tell
hold on,
me?
I'm not done. And
you're
then
certainly not done.
And then
Go on.
Billy looks very uncomfortable. Like you can never see Billy Corgan wearing beach trunks.
You can
And I'm
never
thinking
see
to
the
myself,
Pharaoh.
I can't see the Pharaoh wearing
No,
beach
the
trunks.
Pharaoh doesn't show the Pharaoh's knees. What's wrong with you?
Happy birthday, Mark. We're glad to have you with us on your birthday. Happy birthday wishes, brother. Thank you for joining us. Russell Campbell, you're
What's
the
up,
man.
Russell?
Welcome
What's up?
back, big guy.
What up?
Todd, it's Thursday again, and we're going to have another great show. You better believe it.
Here
It's
we
going to be
go.
fantastic.
Here
So,
we go.
anyway,
Yeah.
I just want to see the Pharaoh at the beach.
How about the Pharaoh and Billy Corgan at the beach doing cannonballs?
Billy
Let's do
Corgan
it.
looks like he's constantly sweating. He's wearing a sweater in 100-degree weather.
Do you like his band, at least?
Yes.
Yeah, Smashing Pumpkins is
But
good.
you can understand why people would not like his band. Would
Well,
you agree?
If they don't like it, it's probably because he has a unique voice, and
Yes.
either it's for you or it's not. I love his voice. I think he's great, and I love his songwriting, and he's got great lyrics, and I think he's really cool.
But you understand why people may not like his music.
Absolutely.
Right,
I
'cause
love
it's
Bob
different.
Dylan, but if I can't understand why people don't like Bob Dylan, then something's got to be wrong with me.
Well, what if people didn't like the Beatles?
Something's wrong with them.
Thank you.
Yeah, something's wrong with them. Well, you got to be tone deaf. I mean, what? Hell, they're too much in harmony. It's terrible.
So I know you haven't been catching the A&E documentaries,
Yeah.
but the final one came out with Bret Hart, and
Right.
he
Pharaoh
was
doesn't have a television set.
well.
So what did you watch for me? Tell me about it. Was it good?
Well, it was a usual documentary, like a Bret Hart one that you've probably seen before. With
I
some-
consider you the king of documentary watching.
thank you.
You know your
Thank
shit,
you
bro.
very much.
There I go. I got to put a horn in on cable now. But how would you rank this documentary? Because you know your documentary.
fantastic.
So it was fan. Okay, tell me more.
But it's the same story, but it's funny how you could learn from wrestling. Everybody out there, it's like one important thing that Hart said. Right, he was carrying all this anger, right,
He's been
over the
known to-
Montreal screw job.
He's been known to do that on a lot
Right.
of things. Go on.
He had a stroke,
Yeah.
and then he said one day he just dropped the anger like this big bag of rocks,
Towards the screw job, in
just
particular?
period, against
He dropped.
Vince.
He dropped all his anger.
All his anger. It was like he said he was carrying this like a weight for years. But the way he explains it, it's like, think about all the weights we carry every day.
Yeah, sure.
And
sure.
what kind of stress we put under our body and how angry we are over
Right,
certain thing, whether it's
right.
about the presidency or, you know,
I stopped
don't
worrying
know.
about that.
well, but
I want to
but
live.
but you understand what I'm
I
saying.
don't think about politics.
You know,
Try not to.
and
I
it's,
got you.
It's,
I got
it's,
you.
It
You
was,
know what
it's
I like
amazing.
it too, and I think I've probably told you this off air, but it's important that I throw this out there. The thing that reminds me of the Bret Hart, Vince McMahon, Montreal Screwjob situation, as far as the long breakup and the years of resentment, and then finally they get back together. I've said it before here in New York. Once upon a time, there was a legend named Yogi Berra, and George Steinbrenner was the owner of the Yankees, and they had a falling out, and it was a bad one. And it lasted, I think, 15, 16, 17 years. How long did it take Hart to return? Over a decade, right?
Yeah, sure.
You know, and finally, two brilliant men who were, you know, famous for doing different things in the sport that they love so much, finally got back together and made up. So maybe was that the moment that he singled out, that he let the hate go and let the resentment go? Because I know it happened for Yogi and George.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised that it finally happened for Brett and Vince. They're irreversibly joined together in history forever. Make up!
Again,
So I'm glad they did.
I just think, though, that we all got to stop carrying so much baggage all the time.
That would be nice.
And lighten up and laugh, and like Thursday nights, we get to laugh, and I
Oh,
hope
yeah.
everybody out there gets to laugh. 802, you're not a huge pumpkin fan?
That's cool. He's 802 Blues.
That's right.
Smashing
But
Pumpkins
802
is not
Blues
exactly...
is a legend.
Yes,
it's a legend.
he is. And Smashing Pumpkins is not exactly blues.
Speaking of a legend, I want to thank the band that sings the theme song for Monte and the Pharaoh. Our own Jimmy Pharaoh, along with his partner Bart Griggs, make up the band Wisteria Hall.
Yeah, thank you. Catch us all over the place, right, Mike?
Catch Wisteria Hall
what is
on their Volume 1, Tales from the Woods.
Yeah.
Tales from the Woods, where you could get some really great songs.
Dude, you should put a bottle of good fucking wine in my hand, because I'm well on my way.
Here you are cursing.
I am another horn.
Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as In My Dreams, This Life, Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on Spotify, Apple Music, and Reverb Nation.
Oh.
Your partner there, Bart, he's a kind of cute little fella. He's a
Are you
cute-
going to start
he's
getting
a
all googly-eyed for my partner?
He's a
What is-
cute little fella right there.
Stop.
Look at that cutie, huh?
Oh, my God. Thank God we don't have an action figure of him.
The girls love that guy.
This is not good at all.
Girls love Mr. Griggs.
Don't take that in the bathroom with you.
If you didn't know it, you are watching Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broad.
Sorry.
Wow.
Wow, You said it was
You are
cute.
watching
You're
long-
stretching him.
You are watching
This is
Long Island's
terrible.
#1 pro wrestling
yeah.
broadcast, Monte and Pharaoh. You can catch Monte and Pharaoh on the Monte and Pharaoh YouTube page and Monte
Poor
and Pharaoh
Bart.
Facebook Live page. You can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor. Catch us on Twitch TV, and if you're lucky enough to live in New York,
Right.
and that's really, I'm being facetious, channel 115 every Tuesday from 7 to 7:30, and for early risers, 6 a.m. to 6:30. And if you're a late night person like the Pharaoh or
Yeah.
Billy Corrigan,
Yeah.
and you like to come out of coffins and never see the sun, you could catch Monte and the Pharaoh from 2 a.m. to 2:30. And we'll be right back with us after this special break with our guest, the job man, Mr. Chris Multerer. That's it, Multerer, right?
Multerer.
Multerer.
And he's also known as Chris Curtis.
All right, well, okay.
Yeah, we'll see you in a sec.
Sorry about that.
Do you treat your dog as part of the family? Well, so do we. So why not celebrate your pup's birthday with the ultimate party box? Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Party Pup Info, and let us make your pup's party or any celebration perfection.
You want to star in your own success? Call QuickCast. www.quickcast.com. 866-7-CAST-NOW. That's 866-7-CAST-NOW. QuickCast.
Start your own success. That's right, folks. Canine Corral for all your dog daycare and overnight care. Call 631-549-1544. That's 631-549-1544.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV, straight from Long Island, New York. As we are very, very excited to have our special guest, Mr. Chris Multerer, to the show. Chris, how are you, buddy?
Hey guys, how are you? Thank you for having me.
All right, well, we've got to end the show because you want to talk about the Three Stooges, so thanks for joining us.
All right, Joe, I guess it's you and me, right?
Chris, really a serious question. How you feeling about your old Green Bay Packers about to lose their quarterback?
Wow.
Goodbye. See ya.
Really?
Don't let the door hit you.
For real?
After all he's done for
Yes.
you and that team, you're just going to kick him out the door?
You know what? He's making $30 million a year, and for whatever reason, now he's not feeling appreciated. You know, they were wrong drafting Jordan Love.
Thank you.
But,
Thank you.
You know, here's the thing. I was thinking about this. They could have 7 quarterbacks on that team, and none of them are going to start. Rodgers was going to be playing for the next 3 years anyway. So yeah, the general manager he blew it, but you know what's done is done. But Rodgers wasn't going to go anywhere. He would have kept starting. So.
I'll tell you, I'm sure you probably do remember though that before Brett Favre, the Green Bay Packers had waited quite a while, and they were very blessed to go from Favre to Rodgers. I don't think that the Packers should take for granted that the next guy is going to be anywhere near your previous 2 legends. I'll tell you that much.
Right, and here's the thing: no other team in the NFL has had, with the exception of maybe, well, I wouldn't even say that, Tom Brady when he was with the Patriots, but from '92 all the way up until this past year, Packers have only had 2 starting quarterbacks.
Right.
The Bears have had, I don't know, 12.
Right.
You know, something like that, and other teams too. But yeah, they've been pretty lucky having 2 of the best. That's for sure. And it shouldn't come to this. It's like, you know, your ego. Yeah, everybody, you know, they have an ego, and he thinks he should have been consulted and that kind of stuff. But you know, that's why they have general managers to do that kind of stuff. And you know, he thought, well, they didn't, you know, ask him what he thought of, you know, drafting a quarterback. Well, they don't have to. You know, it's
Understood.
He's 37 years old. What if he would have got hurt? What if he would have broke his leg? What if he got hurt like he did, like when Mike McCarthy was coach?
Right.
And and he was done. So I mean, he's not 28 years old anymore.
I
So
just don't think it would have been too ridiculous or out there to go to him as a man and say, "Listen, we feel as an organization you can give us 2 to 3 more years, at least. That's what we're saying for now. We would like to draft another quarterback. We're giving you a heads up. What would be the big deal? If he doesn't like it, at least he's been told."
there's nothing wrong with that. I agree with you.
Right.
So,
listen, here in New York, Mike and I are Jet fans, and it's been Joe Namath since we were 2 years old, and life sucks. So that's how we look at it. Chris, I wanted to ask you, why don't we get off to the races here? Being old school fans ourselves, it's very exciting to have you on. What made you decide to get into this business in the first place?
It's pretty crazy. When I was 16 years old, I was at a match in Milwaukee, which is where I was born and raised. And this was down at the Milwaukee Arena, and the match was Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes against Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens.
Wow.
And Vern Gagne had turned Rhodes and Murdoch babyface for a little while. And so during the match, take matches at one time used to be 2 out of 3 falls. So usually what would happen, and I think the fans were catching on until then they turned up 1 falls. But whoever won the first fall would usually win the third fall, and the fans would catch on. But what happened was Murdoch and Rhodes lost the first fall. In the second fall, they were getting their heat on Murdoch. And while they were getting their heat, there was a couple of false tags. Finally, Dusty came in, made that big comeback, and all he did was, he did that kind of Muhammad Ali thing with his fists and got both of them, bumped one of the guys out of the ring, threw the other guy in, hit him with that big elbow, and he jumped up in the air and he dropped that big elbow on either Bockwinkel and Stevens or pinned him. I've never seen a pop like that in all my life, even if the Crusher and the Bruiser were in town. And I thought, you know what? This is what I got to do. I want to do this because I wanted to be the heel. I wanted to be the one where I'm the one who would generate the big pop for selling for a baby face. And that's what made me want to become a wrestler down the road.
What was it like experiencing the Dusty Rhodes aura in person as a young guy watching something like that? Because while Bruiser and Crusher are absolutely amazing at what they did, you can't even compare the charisma to a Dusty Rhodes when it comes to showmanship. What was it like experiencing that for you? I mean, he clearly, obviously inspired you.
He did. Dusty made the greatest comebacks ever for a babyface. Once he would get, if he was in a tag or he was in the singles, and once he made that comeback and those guys flew for him, there was, even as somebody in the business, that's something that I really, really like. Wow, I wish I could have wrestled him, and I would have too. I would have done a job for him in 3 minutes if that's what it was, and that's what it's all about. Popping those guys, making them look, stupendous, and getting the reaction from the crowd, sending them home. I wish I could have wrestled Dusty in his prime.
How did you go about breaking into this business exactly? Did you find a trainer? How do you eventually wind up in places like the AWA and for Vince McMahon?
What happened was I was actually going to a technical school and for photography, and I was taking pictures, and what I wanted to do was actually work for a wrestling magazine if I couldn't get into the business as a wrestler. And so, make a long story short, a guy was running these little outlaw shows in town, so I was taking pictures, and he told me, he said, "Hey, I can't pay you, but you look like you're a big enough guy. Would you be interested in learning how to wrestle? But I'll use you as a manager first." And I thought, wow, sure. So that's what I did. And then fast forwarded a couple months down the road, there was a guy in Milwaukee, and you just showed a picture of him where I was throwing him into the turnbuckles of the ropes, Tom Stone. He's the one who was instrumental and breaking me in, getting me to the AWA, Kansas City, St. Louis, Mid-South, and the WWF. He was the guy that the office would go to when they needed guys. And so he was so instrumental in a lot of our careers, getting us to the big time. And I mean, I'll never forget him for it, because I'll always be grateful for what he did. So,
Training difficult for you in the beginning? Did you question your decision to try to get into this business?
no, because I was athletic. If I would have went through Vern's camp, I don't know if I could have done it, because Vern tortured you.
Okay.
He really did. I mean, when you got a fireman's carry a guy up, 4 or 5 flights of stairs, and like you're going through the fire department training and free squats and all that kind of stuff. But with Tom, his real name is Steve Hall, we learned how to bump, and that's all we did. It was 4 months of 5 days a week, 2 to 3 hours a day, and we learned how to bump. We learned how to take, fall, go over the top rope, learn holds. It was all learning how to protect ourselves, learning wrestling holds, learning the basics. So in essence, it was pretty easy. It wasn't really a hard thing. Yeah, we were sore, but I think I learned, from one of the best, as far as, they didn't have to beat the hell out of you to learn the business. We just wanted to be smart, and he knew when you were ready to take you up, to either Minneapolis or down to Kansas City or St. Louis, and eventually, I was in the business, 7 or 8 years before I went to, work for New York.
So Chris, not many people get the opportunity to speak to someone that got to work in the AWA, especially as early as you did. What was it like working for Vern, and what kind of person was Vern?
First time I met Vern, it was like meeting the president. The guy was an absolute legend. If Vern didn't like you, he'd get rid of you. Bottom line, he would tell Wally Carbo, the guy who booked us for TV or house shows, he'd say, "I don't want this guy back ever again." And I've heard him say that to guys. I was able to work for Vern for 10 years. He protected that business. He made it as legit as you could make it without being really legit. And it was an honor, because I grew up watching the AWA when I was a kid, and then to be working for these guys was like, man, it was like going to Hollywood, me getting my big break, and so he was so credible in what he did, and he had a lot of guys that were shooters that really knew what they were doing. We had Brad Ringens, we had Mad Dog Vachon, we had Billy Robinson, Larry Hennig. Those guys, Evan Johnson, these guys, some of these guys were Olympians. Laurent Soucy, that's a picture of the guy that I'm like tearing his eyes out. He was an alternate on the Olympic team. So he had his guys, and I learned a lot. You learn a lot of on the job training. A lot of good amateur stuff. You can learn how to hook, meaning you get a guy like Billy Robinson, where if you wanna hurt a guy, you grab a joint, and you learn from guys like that. You learn how to protect yourself, and so it was really, really valuable as far as the basics and learning to be tough and that kind of thing. So
Chris, you mentioned Billy Robinson, right? We had Ken Patera in studio. Now, as fans growing up and just fans now, right, the legend of Billy Robinson is exactly what you said, right? The guy could stretch you, break you in half.
Oh, yeah.
But according to Mr. Patera, Billy Robinson really wasn't as tough as he claimed to be, and actually was taking a task. What do you know about Billy?
I don't know. I've heard, sometimes guys like to exaggerate. I don't know exactly. I heard about the thing with Sergeant Slaughter when he was Bob Remus and Baron von Raschke. But my first match, I had a match back in July of '79, and I was still fairly new. We had a 2 out of 3 fall match, and I knew he was rough on the new guys. And so I went up to Bockwinkel and Stevens. Those two guys were kind of like my mentors. They were like, super helpful. They were just really, really good guys. And he just said, well, just listen to Billy, and you'll be okay. So before the match, I went up to him, I introduced myself, and I said, hey, Billy, I'm Chris Curtis. I got you today. He goes, well, nice to meet you. And so we went over our match. And the only part I really remember is the beginning was we lock up. I get him in the corner. I hit him with a forearm in the chest, and I go to Beal throw him. Well, that's what I did. And he put on the brakes, and he called me a couple of names that I really can't repeat. And then he decided he was going to stretch me. He changed everything. And so he picked me up, slammed me, picked me up again, he's got a backbreaker that looks like it can break you in half. He gave me one of those, put me in a Boston Crab, and I tapped right away, and I gave up because he was going to try to break my back. I knew he was going to. Well, they canceled the second fall. And so I went upstairs and I told Wally Carbo, I said, this is bullshit. I said, I didn't come up here to get stretched. I don't need this. And then Bockwinkel came over and he said, hey man, he said, he just initiated you and you made it. So don't quit. I had him about 4 years later and I said, hey Billy, remember me? And he said, yeah. He said, you want revenge on me tonight, right? And I said, no, man, I just want to have a good match. That's all. He gave me most of the match, and then he stopped me and he beat me at the end. And so he did that to a lot of guys. I don't know if Vern gave him the directive to do it just to see if he can handle it, but that was it. He's so quick. It's just trying to get a hold on him is almost impossible. So as far as like guys stopping him in his tracks and I don't know. I wasn't there, but I guess if it happened, it happened. So.
Chris, you spoke earlier of having to, when you work with guys or you learn from guys who can hook, you learn to protect yourself. And I thought that it was interesting, those words, protect yourself, because, and I know Barry Horowitz is going to get mad at me, but as a jobber, after all, your book is Job Man, is your job much more dangerous than a mid-level card guy, an intercontinental title holder guy, a main event guy, because of the fact that you got to take some serious bumps? Or is the answer just obvious at this point? I'm just curious.
No, you're exactly right, Joe. We're kind of in a vulnerable position. We're out there to make the big guys look good, the stars, the mid-card guys. Just take care of us. You don't have to go out there and kill us. Mm-hmm. We're there to make you look good. We wouldn't be there. They would not bring us in if we sucked. Right. There's a few guys out there that shouldn't be out there, but sure, those guys are no longer. Mm-hmm. But I went out there and I told them, I said, whatever you want to do, that's fine. I'll sell the heck out of it for you. But don't, if we're kind of in a vulnerable position, the guy's going to come off and drop a knee on us. Don't come down and cave my chest in or cave my face in, or, there's no reason for it. Tito Santana probably said it best. I worked Tito one time in Milwaukee, and Tito said, I pulled his hair a little bit hard, and he said, hey man, he said, you don't really have to pull it, just touch it and I'll go back with it. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. You just, and we're kind of like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You know, if a guy takes advantage of you, if one of two things, you can either take it out on him in the ring. It's going to screw up the match. You're going to get fired. They won't have you back anymore because you hurt one of their stars or you messed it up. Or if you go in the back in the dressing room and you kamikaze him with a chair in the back of his head, you know, you might go to jail for assault. But it's kind of like a fine line. The only thing what really worked out good, and I really never had any other issues with anybody over the years except that time with Billy. But we had to deal with the fans. So knowing how to protect yourself, if some fan wanted to, you know, take a shot at you, we had that to back us, you know, how to defend ourselves. And so that was a big thing. And there's nutty fans out there. There's some crazy ones, that's for sure.
I bet. I'm sure you came across quite a few. Let's discuss the one that Vern Gagne messed up on, the great one that Vern Gagne let get away. And of course, you have some memories, I am sure, of Monte and the Pharaoh's personal all-time favorite. Tell us about Hulk Hogan.
Hogan, he was probably my favorite opponent. He was super nice. He took care of you out there. Super light. Hogan had a habit. What he would do is when he would hit you in the head, he put his hand on the top of your head, on your forehead, and he hit his own hand. He wouldn't even touch you. And, you know, he's just big and strong enough that when he, you know, if he would slam you or he would suplex you, he would just come down and he was the ultimate job guy's dream to wrestle him. Oh
Really?
My God. He was just the most wonderful opponent. I mean, I could have wrestled him every day of the year and not have to worry about it. As far as what Vern screwed up, in my opinion, they should have given him the strap back in '82. They reversed it because, number one, in this business, after a while, and in any kind of sport, you get sick and tired of seeing the same guys. It was back and forth between Vern and Nick with the title. They should have given it to Hogan because the people wanted something different, and he would have done.
They wanted him.
They wanted him. They really did.
They did.
And if Vern didn't want to give him the title because he was squabbling about his payoffs, you know, for shirts, you know, T-shirt money in Japan and whatever else, and he wanted a real wrestler, you know what? Forget it, because they could have sold out everywhere. And if Hogan had the title, they could have certainly worked out different angles. I mean, you know, Heenan had Patera, Bobby Duncombe, Nick Bockwinkel, Blackjack Lanza. They could have worked out, you know, storylines and angles where they could have come back for over a year and a half, and the title wouldn't have mattered. It's just, you know, the storylines that they could come up that would have sold out. And Vern really missed his opportunity, and Hogan thought, well, you know what? I'm getting a call from Vince. I'm going with him, and I can't blame him. You know, I mean, I love working for the AWA and I love working for Vern, but it was a bad business decision on his part, and so I don't know if he would never publicly regret it, but probably deep down he did.
What would Chris Curtis say to the internet fan, who, by the way, I believe is in the minority? He just has a very loud opinion. What does Chris Curtis have to say to the fan who says that Hulk Hogan was a crap wrestler and ruined the business?
Doesn't matter if he was a crap wrestler. What matters is that he drew money. That's what this business is all about.
That's right.
It's drawing money. You know, who cares?
Right.
So people were enamored with him. He was just so big, so different. You know, and the funny thing is I worked guys before that were like Olympians, and, you know, they would tell me, like, I don't know why I have to do a job for this guy. And, I could beat him straight out. And I say, well, you know what? You're not in the amateurs anymore. This is professional. And they have to get away from that mindset that they can beat this guy, they can beat that guy. Forget it. I don't know if you guys remember a guy named Danny Hodge.
Yep.
Sure.
Danny Hodge was probably the toughest wrestler ever, professional or amateur. Danny did jobs, and if it's a legitimate shoot, nobody was going to beat Danny. But he did what the business wanted to do. He was in it for such a long time, and there was other guys, Joe Scarpello, who was in Iowa. He was a 4-time Big Ten champion. This is way back around when Vern was an amateur, and he was an Olympian, and he did jobs. That's, who cares? It's pretend. It's not.
It's a show.
It's the outcomes are not real. They're all predetermined, and you're in it to draw money. That's all it is. And if you're with that attitude that I can beat this guy and I'm not going to do a job for him, well, you're in the wrong business. Sorry.
How much do you think that Vern Gagne's purist approach towards pro wrestling screwed him up with Hogan? Do you feel like his traditional values got in the way? Because Hulk Hogan was clearly a huge change in pro wrestling, and Vern just didn't want it or didn't recognize it, or what do you think that was?
He didn't want it. Plus, he had that thing where Hogan was selling T-shirts. Oh yeah, and he wanted some Hogan's money from Japan money, which was like it was just so stupid. Vern was a millionaire anyway, and it's like, Bill Watts was sort of like that too.
Okay.
Bill was like, he always had tough guys and everything, but guess what? Junkyard Dog was not a wrestler, and he can only do one, a couple of things, put a headlock on a guy. And, it's like, but so what?
Right.
If you drew money, who cares?
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yep.
Speaking of the plethora of mistakes that Mr. Gagne made throughout his tenure as the owner of the AWA, we're huge fans of the adorable one, Adrian Adonis, and Jesse the Body Ventura.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of relationship did you have with those two gentlemen, and you could tell us a story about them?
I love Jesse. Jesse was, here's the thing, when he was in the AWA, he was a cool guy. When we went to New York, him and Hogan both still were nice guys to us. They remembered us. They stopped and they said hi, and they never had any arrogance like they're better than us. They were just cool guys. No, I don't care what anybody says about them. That's their issue. Jesse was just awesome. If you guys remember Black Saturday from 1984.
Oh yeah.
I was on that card when Vince invaded Minneapolis, and I had Jesse. And but Jesse is just, he's just a really, really cool guy. He's got some different ideas on things these days, but you know what? So what? But he was always cool with us. Adrian, I don't like dirty laundry about any guys. And Adrian was, Adrian, I guess, was Adrian. He had his own deal, but I never had a problem with him. I worked him in a tag match when him and Jesse first got together when they came from Portland back in '79. Adrian was a hell of a worker. He was a great, great worker. And then I had him in Milwaukee again, in the singles. And actually first as a singles, and they brought him in as a babyface, and then they turned him heel with Jesse, and they teamed him up. But I never had a problem with Adrian. You know, other guys had issues with him. I can only speculate, but I don't want to, I don't want to say bad about
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you're fairly emotional about Adrian. Were you affected deeply when he passed away? I mean, after all, I think this is him you're grabbing here on your cover of your book.
Yeah, that's Adrian and I. But no, that's Laurent Soucy on the back of the new book is with Adrian. On the other one,
oh, never mind.
No, there's the other book.
You know, these sunglasses, you can't make out shit.
Yeah, but no,
there we go.
He kind of like self-destructed,
right? And
that's the sad part. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that self-destructed that were like killer workers in the ring. Kurt Hennig and Eddie Guerrero, and that's the part that's really sad. So,
was there anybody you actually like, loathed getting into the ring with? Being the fact that you usually were making them look as good as possible. Anybody too rough with you besides Billy? Obviously that was supposedly an initiation, but was there anybody you saw over the years where you're like, oh man, I gotta perform with this guy again?
No, really not at all. The only time
you're lucky.
Right.
You're lucky.
Well, there was guys that we had our Milwaukee guys that would go to do WWF TV tapings, and there was a couple of guys that really were jerks. Dino Bravo. I worked Dino when he was a babyface in the AWA. Dino, he had one of our guys, and after the match, after he pinned him, he'd stomp on his face and break his nose. He did that like 3 times, and for no reason at all. And then the Iron Sheik, he put him in the camel clutch, and while he'd have the guy's arms like that, and the guy would be vulnerable, after he would like give up, the Sheik would release his arm and he would smash his face right into the mat, break his nose. That kind of stuff is uncalled for. And then the Road Warriors, I wouldn't want to wrestle them because they were so green when they first got in the business that it's like, I'll be damned if I'm getting in the ring with these guys, because Ole Anderson, the booker down in Georgia, just told them to go all out and kill anybody. And even the guys that were on top didn't want to wrestle me because they were so green, they didn't know any better. They just listened to the office and told them they did what Ole said. And but only one other time, and it wasn't really too bad. I was wrestling Tom Stone and I were wrestling the Hart Foundation, and Bret Hart got pretty stiff out there. He was laying in some elbows and kicks that were connecting pretty good. And so now I would have expected that from Neidhart, like, who was the crazy one, but he was like super easy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a legitimate nut job, but he was like super light. Bret, for whatever reason, was a real jerk that night. So I went back to the dressing room and I said, hey, Bret, what was that all about? He goes, well, you were kind of heavy on a slam, and, I just had to let you know. So I'm thinking, really? I looked at the match and I didn't see anything. But yet, here's a guy who blames Bill Goldberg when he gave him that super kick.
Right.
And he claims that may have caused his stroke. And, now all he does is complain about that all the time and whatever else. And
he didn't seem too concerned for you guys that night, though. I got you.
No, and one of the other guys that I teamed up with, Stone, Bret let him have it one night too. I mean, he really sputted him, and just there's no reason for it. You don't have to do that kind of stuff. If a guy is like really making you look bad, that's one thing. Then beat the shit out of him, But don't, and then finish him off right away. Just put him in something, finish him off, and be done with it. But you don't have to go out there and hammer the heck out of a guy for just because if a guy didn't sell something completely right, or you can go up all the way for a slam, it happens. I mean, it happens. So.
We'll be right back with the Job Man after this quick commercial break.
See you in a sec.
Hi, it's John from Under the Table Hot Sauce. I'm here with my friend, the star of the show, Jimmy Pharaoh.
Yeah, what's up, JB?
Nah, nothing.
It's been a hot summer, and for all your barbecue needs, you can go to underthetablehotsauce.com. 13 unique flavors to choose from, created and bottled in a Long Island kitchen. Underthetablehotsauce.com. Let's go chow, JB.
Let's do it.
All the flavor, twice the burn. M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, only seen here out of Indie Music TV in Ronkonkoma, New York. Our special guest is the Job Man, Chris Curtis. You could get his book on Amazon. I got to tell you, people, if you're a wrestling fan, another excellent book. I love reading excellent books about behind-the-scenes stuff and just about the thoughts of the person wrestling. So we are honored to have this guest in here. A quick special shout out. Lee Cole is watching. Lee will be on next week with a possible special reveal that he wanted to share with Monte and the Pharaoh.
Nice.
So Chris, we got a fan out there. We spoke a little earlier. Can you just tell us about your one run-in with the so-called Ultimate Warrior?
Well, it really wasn't running, but we were in Illinois, and gosh, I wish I could remember it was the capital of Illinois, and we were doing TV, and State Athletic Commission always had the doctors take our blood pressure, and he was standing in front of me, and doctor took his blood pressure, and he just kind of like looked up at him and kind of looked at thing again. He goes, "Here, I need to redo this again," and because he was pretty jacked. I mean, really jacked. So whatever he was on, but he was fine. I mean, he said hi and everything. He didn't talk with that, that stupid, his cartoon character look, but he was okay. I never had to work the guy, and even if I had to work the guy, I wouldn't have cared. Probably the only thing that I wouldn't have liked was, these guys, when they would press slam you over their head, and instead of like going over, landing on your back, they would drop you, face first.
Right.
And it's just like, man,
Yeah.
how would he like to go like 7 feet in the air, face first? And, that's a recipe for, breaking an elbow, a knee, or whatever else. And guys hated that, but they didn't care. They just did it, and oh well, I'll move on to the next guy. And that's the kind of stuff that one of the Road Warriors did that to Kurt Hennig. They picked him up. He thought he was going to get press slammed on his back. Well, they dropped him, and he said, if the guy tries it the next time, he's going to grab his nose and pull his nose off his face. Wow. He was really ticked. Yeah. So it's that kind of stuff. They want to do it for effect, but they don't realize that they're doing that with a human being. And, we're not like granite. We're not steel. We got bones and everything that could break, and even if they did that with a guy that they're working an angle with, if they hurt him, well, they're going to lose money because they're not going to have that opponent to work anymore. So you got to take care of each other. That's what it's all about. Monsoon said that too. You have to take care of your opponent. You have to work together, not go out and hurt each other. Even if you don't like each other, you don't try to hurt the other guy.
You know, Chris, I got a two-part question here, because just thinking about what you're saying. Number one, do you think today's wrestling needs the squash match to be brought back with the jobber? Because, again, I think it was important to wrestling back in the day, and I think it could be important now. And then the second part of the question is this. Have you ever seen a case where someone just said, screw this, I'm tired of this guy taking liberties on me when I'm supposed to be doing something, and just took business into his own hands and just made the star look like shit?
The squash matches, there would be no problem doing that, as long as those guys, took care of the jobbers. I used to love studio wrestling, old studio wrestling. There was just something about that as opposed to doing, taping TV in a large venue. But yes, I think that they should have never gotten away with that. Now it's all kind of like house show stuff. It's all talk. As far as a guy taking it out on another guy, he'd be done. He would be blackballed out of the business because you hurt the guy. Well, you ever heard the story about Danny Spivey and Adrian?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Adrian was like real stiff with him, and Danny got sick of it, and Danny laced him really good, and Adrian's lucky that according to Bob Orton, Adrian was never the same after Danny got a hold of him. I don't know if anybody knows about what happened, but Adrian was working him real stiff. Danny Spivey's about 6'6", 270, 280.
He's huge.
Yeah, he's a pretty tough dude. And
not forget, he's the American Starship Eagle.
Oh, right, with Coyote. There you go. Hey, yo.
Yeah.
There you go.
Go ahead.
But Adrian came back, and I think Danny did something out there. Adrian came back and tried to double leg him, leg dive him. Danny hit him, split his whole side of his face.
Wow. And
almost killed him.
Wow.
And so they had to take him to the hospital. So I don't know if anything ever happened to Danny. But I don't know if it's ever really happened. That's probably one of the worst stories that I ever heard. But if I was working a guy, let's say that time that I worked Billy Robinson, and I went back and he's in the dressing room, and he's just sitting there, and all of a sudden I decide to take a chair and hit him on the top of the head and just beat the heck out of it, on his head, and send him to the hospital. Number one, I'd probably go to jail. Number two, I would have been blackballed out of the business. So it's kind of like you talk to the guy, say, hey, man, you know what? Lighten up. There's no reason for it. That's why you talk things out. You don't go out of your way, because once you do something to somebody physically, you can't take it back. There's no, rewind everything. But if you talk it out, you might be able to work it out. And sometimes that usually works out. Happened with me and Billy, worked it out,
Right.
Yeah.
Russell Campbell asks out there, I don't know if you can answer this, but he said, did Ric Flair throw jobbers a couple extra bucks out of his own pay?
That I don't know, but Ric Flair was always one of the guys that was always really good to jobbers. I never wrestled him, but he always respected them. He always gave them, a match. Harley Race was another one who was really good to the job guys. Nick Bockwinkel was really good to the job guys.
Oh, my favorite, Bockwinkel.
Yeah,
Mike doesn't like Bockwinkel either. Just figured I'd
No.
throw that in. Stooges and Nick Bockwinkel. What's going on?
Yo,
here,
you're speaking about the AWA, okay? Look, I understand. Again, this is, wrestling fans flip out when I say this, but it's like I just never got the Bockwinkel thing. I guess I understand he was a great wrestler, but I just never got it. I just couldn't imagine people flying to your local stadium to see Nick Bockel in the main event. You wanna smack me down right now, Chris, and tell me I'm out of line?
No. There are some guys that like and don't like, and
Sure.
But when he was with Heenan, that just amped it up even more.
Oh yeah.
But as far as like Flair, I heard that he did. Sometimes he requested, certain guys. He would request like George South down in the Carolinas.
Okay.
Who was really good. Some guys would say, "Hey, I want to work this guy," but Flair never went out of his way to to hurt anybody. Maybe he did. Maybe he gave him like, here's an extra $25 or $50 to, for putting me over like that.
I would have asked for one of his escorts. Forget that $25 or $50.
It's funny.
Give me one of Ric Flair's
It's
leftovers.
funny we're talking about this because
your girlfriend's tonight, right? And I'll take a backdrop over the top rope for you.
But you think you're right, but we have Baby Doll in studio in a couple of weeks, and for what I understand, when Baby Doll used to travel with Flair paid for nothing.
Wow.
So woo. So maybe it's all not true.
Who knows? Chris, let's get to the title of your book. A lot of wrestlers hate the term jobber. We're actually afraid to say it to certain guys.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I got to ask you,
especially Barry.
why job man? Why? How do you feel about the backlash towards the term, and why job man, Chris? Tell us.
Because I think it's unique in the name. It's like that's what I was. I was a job man. I had no problem with it. It's kind of like it. I think it draws attention really good. And that's what we did. The guys who had the finishes, they never came up to me and said, "Hey, by the way, you're doing an enhancement tonight," or they never even said you're doing a job for so and so. You already know whoever you're going to work. You're going to do a job for. If it's a mid card guy or whatever. Now, if it's another guy that would do jobs, you might do a 15-minute Broadway in the opener or something like that. But I mean that term has been around forever.
CJ Duncan says it's better than being called a ham and egger.
Yeah, that's a little demeaning. That's where he gets that from is Heenan. Heenan used to call guys ham and eggers,
right.
But guess what? You take it in stride because you know what? It's showbiz. It's like you can't take a lot of this stuff personally. If they said, well, okay, Curtis, you're an enhancement talent. Okay, then I guess I'm an enhancement talent. But guess what? I'm a job guy too. So whatever. I mean, some guys just my goodness, they're so opposed to that label, and it's not really derogatory or demeaning or anything. It's just a term that was given to us in the business. That's all.
Andrew Barton says, call yourself a carpenter. What do you think of that?
What is that supposed to mean? Is that supposed to mean?
I guess maybe instead of jobber, you could be a carpenter or a plumber.
Yeah.
And wear polka dots. Let's get a little serious here, right? Pharaoh just caught on to that one.
No, I'm processing Sapphire. Oh boy.
Don't call me Sapphire.
No, not you. I'm thinking about him with Sapphire. Actually, I've been trying to forget it for 30 years. Thanks a lot, Mike.
We've spoken a few times, Chris, and you're a very well-grounded man, and we know a few ex-wrestlers, actually quite a few, that are pretty well-grounded. But why does it seem more than not that these wrestlers, after they're done, are just broke dick and they've got nothing left What's going on? What's the issue here?
Lifestyle.
Well, they didn't. They probably.
Okay.
I think like the bigger names. There's one guy in particular that I remember reading about. He had to have surgery, and I mean, and then he started a GoFundMe page to help him pay for his surgery. And I'm thinking, what did you do with all your money? You know, when you're making, $400,000 a year, what did you do with your money? You know, other guys, you're probably right. Could be the lifestyle. They didn't have a backup plan. I mean, in this business, if you don't have a backup plan, and this is all you know, and if you get hurt, whatever, or you get fired, and there's no other place to go, you got to find something to do, and especially if you have a family. But I think it's just the way you save your money. So I know that I don't know exactly, what they did for expenses, what Vince did. I don't know if these guys are flying around, I'm sure they're playing. I don't know if they have to pay for their own flights. They probably have to get their own, rental cars and hotels and stuff. But even then, guys are, they get 4 to a car or 4 to a room. And so you have to, and when you're making maybe $10,000 a week, you should be able to.
Yeah, think about what you just said. $10,000 a week.
I'm thinking about it.
And when they go to Japan, if they're big, like, they could be making 15 or 20,000 a week.
Wow.
And everything is paid for. Everything is paid for. It's like, when Baba or Inoki would bring guys in, especially Baba, guys like Stan Hansen, everything was paid for. Brody, everything was paid for.
Yeah.
The Funks, everything was paid for. They took care of it. They didn't have to worry about anything. So, yeah. And then you see these guys that are still, wrestling, and they're 67 years old or 70 years old. I'm thinking, Jesus, you can't even walk. It's like, we don't look good in spandex anymore. I'm sorry. But, our mind says, yeah, we can still do it. But our bodies say, no, you can't do it. You shouldn't do it.
Todd Beecraft says out there, ham and egger, now I'm hungry. Here's a great question. Andrew Barton has a good question for you, and I actually really love this question, but I'm going to change it a little bit.
What?
Who is the best jobber in the history of professional wrestling?
Well, wow. Wow.
I would say...
Think about it, Chris. The list is long. Me and the Pharaoh have a list, too. We might have to do a show about it, so think about it.
I'm going to tell you something. If it comes down to really, really making guys look like they are just out of this world, ridiculously strong. Remember the Mulkey brothers?
Oh, yes. A lot of fans of the Mulkey brothers, yes.
They were human paper airplanes. I think it was Randy Mulkey. That guy could get a clothesline, and he could do a backward 360. These guys were they were unbelievable. And there's other guys. There's another. Barry was Barry Horowitz. He was really good. He was a really good jobber.
Where does Frankie Williams rank?
Thank you. I was just about to ask that. Frankie Williams, to me, is one of the greats of the early 80s, period. Put him in the Hall of Fame. What do you think of Frankie?
Truthfully, I never saw Frankie wrestle. I saw that issue with him and Piper.
Okay.
But,
he tried. He tried really hard. He tried.
Yeah. I really, I want to be honest. I've never really saw, Frankie wrestle.
How about Johnny Rods, Jose Estrada?
Yes, those guys were really good. And here's this thing about those two guys. They were. What would happen was
Don't forget about
Vince-
Orange Cassidy, Chris, by the way.
God, Orange Cassidy. Here we go again. Sorry, Chris. We left the bust on Orange Cassidy.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, well, that's because
good for you.
he's in AEW right now sucking.
Oh.
Sorry. He's a current guy. He's a current
But
guy.
Rods and Estrada were really good. Those guys were Vince Senior's, like, when they would bring new guys in, because they were usually heels, Estrada and Rods, and when they bring in a new baby face, Vince would go to him and say, how was it? And so he valued their opinion, and they were tough guys too. I mean, they were really good. I mean, they were jacked, and they were really, really good performers. So, I liked them. They were, and they had a legitimacy about them. They didn't get killed.
Right.
They still put a guy over, but
Right. They put up a fight.
Exactly.
Oh,
They were
yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah. Did you have any contact with Vince over your time?
Vince Jr. I did. Yeah.
Right. What was that like?
Vince, he was really, really nice to us. He would see us when we were walking through, or they would always have like a big buffet for everybody. And when we were walking in, he would say, "Hey guys, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it." He goes, "Don't forget to eat. There's a nice buffet out there for you guys." So he was always cool. My dealings with Vince were, number one, when I got my head shaved by Brutus, Vince went crazy, and he actually came back, and he liked it so much. He told Strongbow who would pay us. He told me to give me an extra $100.
Nice.
Yes, and then a couple weeks later, I was wrestling the guy. I don't know if you remember the one where I was supposed to wrestle DiBiase, and DiBiase said, I'm a preliminary bum, and he's not going to wrestle me. And so he's got another guy that is going to do a sweat for him, Art Washington. That was all Vince's thing. Vince came up and he said, "Hey, I want to do this. Would you be okay doing this?" He actually asked me if I had a problem with it. And I said, "No, whatever you want to do." I went over, beat Art in about a minute and a half, and I thought, man, they might start using me for a little bit more, but that was okay. Always nice to us. I never had a problem. I was always a gentleman.
Very cool. So, Chris, we're out of time. What a fantastic interview.
Yes.
I want to remind everybody, please go get The Job Man if you haven't gotten it already. It's a great book. I loved it. I will be reading it again once I hit the beach this weekend if the weather's right.
You're going to take me and Billy Corgan, too, right?
I might have to bring you and
boy.
Billy Corgan. So what we're going to do to finish out the show, Chris, is we got something called the Pharaoh's Final Question. This is an unscripted question where it just comes straight from the Pharaoh's head. So have at it, Jimmy, the Pharaoh's Final Question.
Now, if you hear an echo, Chris, I apologize because that's the space between my ears. Anyway, I wanted to ask you...
By the way, a pumpkin's...
Yes,
pretty good, pal.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
smart.
you.
I caught that right away.
There you
good
go.
job.
There you go. I wanted to ask you, Chris, while we have you on the show tonight, and thanks again. You were an awesome interview. Can you give me your Mount Rushmore of jobbers?
Wow.
Give me 4 jobbers that would be the epitome of your art.
Well, I would go with 2 of them would be the Malkies.
All right.
And then I would probably go the other 2, probably the 2 guys that you mentioned before.
Rods and Estrada.
Rods and Estrada. Sure.
Nice.
Not a problem there. Exactly.
That works. But Barry Horowitz is going to call us tomorrow. He's going to be pissed.
Well, because he's not the jobber. He's talent enhancement.
Well, that's true. I
There
guess
you
it's
go.
a free
Well,
pass for Barry on this one then. All right.
They can put up a statue of Barry and Ida together and kind of like glaring at each other.
With the Brooklyn Brawl.
We might have to bring you
behind
both in here and maybe have a brawl.
Brooklyn Brawler too with Steve Lombardi.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
By the way, Russell Campbell says, "Great job, Chris." No pun intended.
That's great.
That's all I can do is I just want to do my job right.
That's
you
it.
Sure did, brother. You sure
You
did.
know, Chris, I want to
Great,
thank
Russ.
you again, man. What a pleasure, and I look forward to having you back on the show, and I look forward to speaking with you again. You're a fantastic human being, and what a great interview. We have so much more to talk about. We hope to talk to you soon.
Love it. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Chris. Peace, brother. Thank you.
All right, Jimmy. What'd you think?
Nice job.
Pretty good.
Nice job.
Nice job. Look at you.
That was great. I thought that was great.
I gotta tell you, this Chris has got tons of stories. We didn't even cover half the stories.
I know.
And the hour just flew by, and I never
Well,
even ever say
That's the mark
hour
of
flew by.
That's the mark of a great conversation.
There you
because
go.
we might be interviewers, but we like to talk to people. That was awesome.
I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Again, please support Chris. This book is a great read for professional wrestlers. By all means, go on to Amazon, get the book. It's fantastic. One thing I want to mention is Pulsar Light said, is there any Frankie Williams T-shirts out on eBay?
Interesting.
I said, if there is, please pick up one for you and me.
Does it say I tried?
You
And on
know
the back,
what?
I tried really hard.
We might have to.
That would be
We
cool.
might have to make
Why
one
not?
of those.
I
That's not a bad
I
idea.
love Frankie Williams. That'd be great.
Anyway, we want to thank you all. Upcoming shows next Thursday. We've got Lee Cole in studio. He's got a couple of things to reveal, and look forward to that. And then on Monday, we have Baby Doll with the 28th. Matt, is it the 28th for Baby
I
Doll?
believe it
Thank
is.
you.
There you go.
And
Very
then
nice.
on August 5th, Matt, correct me, I don't have it down here. We've got tribute to New Jack. The Life and Times of New Jack in studio will be Super Crazy and Mustafa.
Nice. That's awesome.
And July 31st, we have Joel Gertner
Oh, my. Well.
in studio.
Joel Gertner. I love Joel Gertner.
Look at you
man.
loving Joel
I love
Gertner.
EC Dub, baby. EC Dub. Fantastic.
And we've got MTV star. Let me get my act
Hey,
together.
is that the big...
Marissa Jade in
Dude.
studio. So
Is that the Big Brother thing?
that's the Big Brother thing, brother.
Hey, real quickly, I'd like to
Go
give a
ahead.
shout out to Monte and the Pharaoh's favorite couple, Rocco and Rosemary Spano over in Port Jefferson Station. Just want to give them a shout out. We love you guys. Thank you very much for the support. Keep a lookout on your mailbox, too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate the support. We want to thank everybody for support you're giving us out there also. We look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Great comments, by the way, today, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent
That was
comments,
awesome.
really comments.
Russell's hilarious.
Everybody's
Unbelievable.
hilarious. And thanks again, you guys. It's an honor to be able to put on a show and you guys watching and enjoying. It means all the world to us. Anyway, this has been Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte and the Pharaoh. This is Mike Monte.
This is Jimmy Pharaoh, and until next time, later.